Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Masks Off. We're so happy to have you listening or viewing us today. And I'd like to start this episode with a quote. So, the title of this episode is The Thought Train. And the quote to go with it is, "Ships don't sink because of the water around them. Ships sink because of the water that gets in them. Don't let what's happening around you get inside you and weigh you down." Anonymous. So I was talking with Tia before we started recording, and I felt that this was coming up for me this morning because as we are in coronavirus times, I just got done reading a post on the Facebook group for parents where my daughter goes to college, and they're testing all the kids twice a week, which is great and amazing in one respect. And then in the other respect, when you start to see the number of positive cases, it's a little bit concerning. Mm-hmm. So I saw that on the dashboard, there were a few cases. And then from there, here's where my thought train went. It just like spiraled so quickly. Can I tell you just how fast it happened? Do. Seconds. It just went boom, 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 boom. It's like,
now, did you watch it go boom, 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 boom? Or in retrospect, did you go, oh, wow, my thoughts really took me down this train?
I think it was retrospect.
Okay. All right.
It was retrospect. I may have been a little bit aware, but it was really after the fact. I just really stopped and said, holy cow, look what I just did to myself.
But you stopped the train.
I stopped the train and I realized. So it was literally, I read the post, 3 students tested positive, to, oh my goodness, now what will happen if my daughter tests positive? You know, will she have to, well, I know she'll have to move to another space, but how will that work? How will she get all her stuff and move from her room to another room where she'll be quarantined and isolated? Does she take all her stuff? Can she go back to her room? What if she has to come home? Oh my goodness, then if she's in the car with me, then I'm going to get coronavirus and then everybody else is going to get coronavirus. To how is she going to have access to all the stuff she needs for school, to do her papers and the printers and the technology? I mean, it went boom, 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 boom.
Everything.
And then I was a mess. Then I just like, just
right.
Like the quote says, don't let what's happening around you get inside you and weigh you down. Mm-hmm. It completely, from one little thing that I read on Facebook, weighed me down. Definitely. Thankfully, I was able to realize and catch it.
Yeah. But what, 10, 15 years ago, you never would have been able to.
Not even. Yeah, even a couple years ago, most of my life, it just, and no wonder your shoulders, like if you feel like you have tension and tightness in your shoulders, right? They say it's where you carry it all.
Right. Carry the weight of the world on your shoulders.
Carry the weight of the world. This is a really big theme for me in my life right now, is to just really be aware of my thoughts and to just be in the moment. And I'm really going inward a lot and trying to just recognize, be aware of my thoughts, and then just notice that they are thoughts. And if I let the train go, to realize what it does to how I'm feeling, my belief systems, the rest of my day.
Mm-hmm. And it expands outward too, because then you're stuck in that thought cycle.
Yeah.
And so then your energy changes. So if you happen to talk to your daughter, you would potentially be asking all these questions, which could then ramp up her thought train and worry and concern. So when we're on this thought train, oftentimes we don't keep it inside of us. That ship sinks, like it says, and then it takes everyone else on that ship with you.
I know.
So it's not an individual thing, it's collective too.
It is collective. Outward. And that has happened, that's happened numerous times with my kids, where I can get caught. So I would say if there's one part of my life that I'm really still working on, is those anxious thoughts, and just being able to, keep them to myself and just deal with it within myself, so that I'm not spreading that to them. Because I know that in the past, by vomiting my anxiety out onto them, I have created anxiety within them. And easily my daughter could get caught in that same train if I said to her, if I called or texted her, oh, hey, did you hear there's 3 students at your school that are positive? Watch out for them.
Right.
You know,
just stay in your room and don't go anywhere.
they don't go anywhere. You know, it's like, oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
What about you? What's your experience for yourself or with clients or anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, so when I notice the thought train, you know, like before, so sometimes I catch it as I'm in the thought train, and then I have this internal battle, I guess. Yeah, I guess it's kind of a battle where my mind is like, stay in the present, but what if, but what if, but what if? And then, you know, so it's like, come back to the present moment.
Yeah.
But if I don't catch it and it just takes me down the spiral, eventually, like what you had, you know, when you do notice it, sometimes there's like a tornado, you know, like what we were just talking about. I've put my anxiety, my worry on my kids by asking a bazillion questions, or
Yes.
however that looks. And sometimes I've kept it inside. It just kind of depends on the moment. But I think for me, the hardest is when I'm on that thought train, when I affect those around me. And so either they'll tell me, you know, what are you even thinking about? Or they join me in that worry.
Yes.
And then it gets to a point where it's like, okay, stop. But then sometimes I'm ready and I'm back in the present, but whoever I influence is not. And that's a hard one for me to reconcile, because it's like, oh, I just created, it's that co-creation piece, right? So I just created in relationship with, let's just say, one of my kids, and now they're worried about it. Even if they pretend they might not be worried about it, you can see it.
You can see they are.
You can see it's there. And then it, you know, it'll come up later, a day or two later, that I'm like, oh, yep, that was me. Because I let my thought train take over.
Yeah.
I mean, gratefully, it's not as often, but of course it still is, especially under times of stress and change, you know, these last few weeks. Because so we're recording this first few days of September, and, you know, kids are back in college.
Yeah,
so
you have the same situation going on with the coronavirus and the numbers.
Yeah. Higher numbers here.
Higher numbers.
Bigger campus, but yeah. So it's, and then holding that space, you know, in particular around this, my one daughter, you know, she's seen one daughter staying home for a couple more weeks, and then she's going to consider going back to campus because all her classes are online. She wanted to see what happened with Corona before she steps back onto the campus world.
So smart.
But my one daughter who is down there, you know, she's witnessing. She's in an apartment building now that has an elevator, and she got on the elevator, I think it was her second or third day back on campus, and she looked up and the 2 people in the elevator didn't have masks on.
Wow. Yeah. Seriously, in a closed space like
it's
that?
It's a small elevator. And she called me and she's like, Mom, they didn't have it on. I said, so what are you going to do moving forward now? She's like, I'm going to try to remember to look. If they don't have masks on, I'm not going to get on.
Don't get in.
But then you even think about it. So there's the thought train, right? It's like, okay, so there's that. But even if she's on the elevator all by herself, how many people were in this tiny enclosed space with absolutely no airflow? I mean, the elevators are just a massive little droplet container of viruses, not just Corona, but all sorts of stuff. So it's really easy to know. And, you know, and we've even talked about, because I mean, she's a 25-minute, half-hour drive from our house. It's like, well, but if you test positive, it's probably best you don't come home.
Right. That you don't come home. I know. And then that sets off.
That's hard.
Yeah. See, that sets off a whole lot in me, you know, as well. Like there's the fear. So it sets off a lot of fear of, okay, so now if my daughter gets coronavirus and she's isolated into a room for 2 weeks, I guess minimum.
Right. 10 days symptom free before they'll let you out, because they won't retest you for negative anymore, because you're test positive for a long time.
What if they're positive with no symptoms though?
It is. So one of my neighbors had this experience. She tested positive. She works in healthcare. She tested positive. No one else, none of the clients she worked with or the patients she worked with, none of her coworkers tested positive either. She had no symptoms. And so she was told by her doctor and the job that as long as you're symptom free for 10 days, you come back. So regardless if you're asymptomatic or not. So that must be the number they're thinking right now. But again, we don't know much.
Right.
That they are assuming you're no longer contagious after 10 days, which is it true? We don't know, but there's another thought train. You can go down that thought train again.
I know. See, it's so easy. So when this happens, right? So let's talk about what we can do when we're on the train and we know how to get off the train. And then what else can we do to prevent ourselves from even stepping onto the train?
Exactly. So,
right.
Right. So for me, it's noticing, once I notice the thoughts, and like I said, I can have this internal, like, okay, don't keep going down that train. And sometimes I can step off right away. Sometimes it's still, okay, I just got to finish a couple more thoughts because, and then I can step off the train. Yes. It's really about coming back to the present moment. So for me, it's the pause. We've talked about the pause.
Right.
And there's many, many ways to pause. And I think I've shared in the past that I help clients identify at least a couple different ways to pause, because sometimes we can't access one of our go-tos, so then we need to have a couple more to be able to grab onto. But for me, pretty consistently is the breath. Yeah. Like, okay, just breathe. And if I'm having a really hard time, I'll put my hand on my heart and breathe, because then I'm like, okay, here's my body. I'm here in this room right now. I can feel my body. And I can notice my breath in and out of my nostrils. Yeah. And so I usually don't have to put my hand on my heart anymore, but that for people who this is new to, it's just that reconnection to your physical body, because, it's both, we're here and there, but together, because we do live this life in a physical body. Yes. So if that helps you, that's what I encourage people to do too. So for me, it's my breath and coming back to the present moment. Yeah. So the thoughts can still be flying by. But I'm like, nope, just take another breath. And another.
And another.
And is that happening now? No.
That's a good question, right? You have to ask yourself, is it happening now in this moment?
Mm-hmm. And 99.9% of the time it's not. And if it is, like, let's say you get the call or I get the call, it's like, okay, it is. They're tested positive. Okay. Yeah. Now what? Okay. Moment by moment by moment by moment. If they're not in the hospital, and even if they end up in the hospital, it's the same. We've had these conversations before. It's like, okay, so what happens? You just meet the moment.
So I'm wondering too, because I was thinking, like, what happens if, she gets test positive and you were saying, okay, right now in this moment, she's fine. She's not positive. She's not isolating. She's not in quarantine. So be in this moment.
Right.
What would you say, like, when is it helpful or is it not helpful to have a plan and be proactive? Or is that just still a sneaky way of still being on the thought train? You know what I'm trying to say?
Like, I do. I mean, because we hear that a lot, right? It's like, well, be in the present moment. Okay, but we also live in a world where you do have to have some plan in place.
Be proactive rather than reactive, right?
Right, exactly. And so I think it's individual, of course. Are you on the thought train of preparation based on fear, or are you preparing based on mindful, thoughtful, just preparation? Yeah. So if and when this were to happen, like you said, it's not a reaction. It's okay, remember, this is what we're going to do. And so it can be a way to calm that nervousness, that anxiety.
Yes.
Have some preparation, just as long as you're not just preparing all the time and not being in the present moment. So I think if you're still in the present moment preparing versus I'm just going to prepare for the collapse of the world all the time, then you're not in the present. So then you're always on your thought train.
Right.
So like with my daughter, we talked about, okay, if you test positive, it's probably best you stay in your apartment, and it's probably best that you need to stay in your room. And if you use the bathroom, you clean it immediately, you wear your mask, but you don't go into common spaces. Yeah. And maybe I'm encouraging her and her roommates to have a plan for this. Yeah. Because both of her roommates are from out of town. So they can't go home. At least one in particular can't go home because she lives on one of the coasts. It's like, okay, so do you have them just put food outside your door? Or do you I come down and I get a whole bunch of really easy to eat granola bar, whatever it is,
Yeah.
something that you don't have to cook. Yeah, it's not going to be fun and it's not going to be pleasant. Or I just come down and drop food off. There's ways around it.
Yeah.
But obviously I'm close that I can do that. But I think preparing is helpful. We have to plan ahead to pay our bills.
That's true.
But then are you coming back to the present? As long as we're returning to the now and not being caught up in that cycle of fear, worry, anxiety.
Yeah, I think so too, because I feel for me, it's comforting and calming to have some kind of plan in place if something like this were to happen. And then I think in addition to then meet the moment, and then maybe if the moment comes, because it may not, if the moment does come, then meet the moment and take my plan, but also be able to adjust if I need to adjust.
Right.
But it's some type of plan at least.
Right. Because we can plan all we want and the plan may not even work.
I know.
Because we have this idea, should she test positive, but you know what? If she has a bad case, I'm not leaving her all alone.
Yes, exactly.
But if it's just like a cold or something.
Yes.
Well, yeah, you can ride this out on your own, but.
Exactly. That's the same. But if she's super sick, she's not. Yeah.
I, as a mom, I can't just watch that happen.
I know. Same.
I'm sure you've been in a very, very big situation where one of your kids is sick and you're in there up close, taking care of them.
I know.
It's what we do.
And then you have to watch. So then when you start to think about watch the feelings rise, because then I can watch, like, as you say that, and I think about just even in this moment of, if she gets really sick, I watch the feelings rise in me.
Yes.
And it's fear, because that's what anxiety is
exactly.
fear, right? So, and I'm already in the lack of control. I can't control. Yep. So anxiety, fear, control, or lack of control that I don't have. And then I'm already into the future though. Right. What if she gets really sick? And then I start to even envision it. And it's like, okay, no, stop. Right. Then that's when you come back to breathe. We're right here in this moment, in this particular moment. And I mean, I've used this so many times, especially like when my mom was in the hospital before she died, like really just so many what ifs and decisions and questions and anxiety and fear based. And I just kept back to like, okay, in this moment. Right. And it does really boil down to, I'm glad you brought that in, the control, because that's what it is basically for all of us. Underlying is this lack of control and feeling like a little child when you felt like your environment around you was out of control and you had you were powerless. Right. Because as children, we felt powerless, right?
Because we were.
And we were, right? A lot of us were, most of us were. But now it comes back to, and I know I shared this before, I come back to saying, in addition to my breath and in addition to physically grounding, the comfort that I give myself, the affirmations, the nurturing is, Kim, you're an adult now. You're an adult. You have amazing coping skills. You can handle this. You can, you will figure out what you need to figure out in any given situation.
Right. Exactly. And remembering that it's that empowering feeling rather than, I can't do anything. And then the thoughts get worse versus, and even if you're spiraled into that situation where it's so overwhelming, if you can just come back to the present and say, what is one thing I can do right now? Yeah. Just one thing. You don't have to have all the answers. And maybe that one thing is literally like, I just need to go for a walk outside.
Yes.
To reset. And let the thoughts spiral while you're outside, but you're feeling the fresh air, you're smelling all of this, you're seeing a bird, whatever. It can just help bring you back.
That's a great point.
sometimes taking that next step isn't an action step towards a solution, but an action step towards taking care of yourself. So you can be the adult in the situation, like you said, because until we're there, we're not going to have the ability to be mindful in our choices. Then we're just reacting.
Completely. And I like what you said about just going out either in nature or even just moving your body, because that whole mental energy of worry, all those feelings, if you move your body, you can move the energy as well.
Right.
So there's another one. So we talked about moving your body, moving the energy, being in nature if you can, focusing on your breath, grounding yourself, feeling yourself in the moment, and then maybe some encouraging words or some affirmations.
Yeah. And
really
it's
draw
individual.
upon, it is individual what even works for each person. And I was going to say, just like that whole comforting part, for me, it's really drawing upon my adult self, because we just said it's really my child, my inner child, that gets so scared and afraid, like, oh my God, what's going to happen? How am I going to handle this? Right. So it's really just stepping in and seeing that and recognizing that's what's at play. And then being my adult self and saying all the things that I just mentioned. Exactly.
I mean, and having compassion for ourselves. I mean, everyone gets on the thought train, everyone. And I think for people who say they don't, they're just not even aware they are.
Yes.
So noticing that, you're human, we're going to have worries, we're going to have concerns, and that's okay. And then you have the choice to step off the train and get on the platform and watch the train whiz by and not pop on.
Exactly. And so then we talked about earlier about not getting on the train in the first place. So what has helped you in your life to, and we said we all step on, but at the times when you don't step onto it, what has helped you?
I mean, for me personally, the biggest tool that has helped me is meditation.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Me too.
Because then we start to notice, you can't notice your thoughts. At least I could notice them, but not in the same way once you start meditating, because then you have to notice your thoughts. That's part of meditation.
Yeah.
And then recognizing that when we meditate, it doesn't mean we're in this Zen, happy, whatever thing you have in mind of meditation. No, meditation is, oh, there's a thought. Now I can come back to the present. Oh, there's another thought. I'm going to let that one go by. Oh, now I'm down the thought train. Oh, but I can come back. So it's that, like we've talked about, putting those little pathways in our brain.
Yes.
And saying, you know what? I can notice the thought, or I can be on the thought train. And now it's that power of meditation is coming back to the present moment.
Yes.
It's not finding the Zen place. It's coming back to your breath, back to the present.
And we're coming full circle to a couple of episodes before that we were talking about that. So that's so cool. It all intertwines.
It does.
So maybe a sneak peek for listeners and viewers, what we're going to be working on.
Yeah, it's fall. We've got some fun stuff in the works, don't we?
Yes. We're planning to do some things that we'll be offering, and maybe we'll even put some little meditation in there.
Yeah, I think it's important.
Yeah, to help our listeners and viewers. So stay tuned to our episodes to hear about what we're planning for the future for you guys. And this has been a really helpful episode for me, since I was on the train this morning. Thankfully, I did get off after. I think when you were talking earlier, I'm thinking about the subways, because subways stop more often, right, than a train does. The train stops too, but you have all these stops. It's like, okay, let me hop off now the subway, or let me hop off this train.
Right. And even just remembering, for those of you familiar with Renee Jane's work, mind the gap. That's what she. So there's the gap. When you get on and off a subway or a train, you have to mind the gap. And I guess in England, they have that whenever the doors open, mind the gap, apparently.
Yes.
Could be wrong on that, but so that gap is the pause. Like, remember.
Yes. right? Just before you step on, just to be mindful and watch and be careful of that gap between the platform and actually stepping on the train, right?
Exactly. The thought train.
The thought train. Yeah. I mean, I've often seen that gap between, I'm like, oh, I hope I don't like not pay attention and fall down my foot.
Yeah, I have lots of memories of that, going to Chicago and having just that's a little primal fear in me.
Yes.
The train and the third rail that you're gonna like zap and die. Okay, now we're going on a different train.
Yeah, we're going on a whole different train now. So we'll end here. We're just getting silly now, having some fun.
That's right. That's what we do.
Yeah, we do. Exactly. So thank you everybody for listening. We hope that you have a beautiful day, and we do appreciate the likes, the shares, the comments, the support. We've had a couple more reviews and a few more subscribers. So we're really excited. Thank you so much for all of your support.
Definitely. And watch your thoughts today.
Yes.
All right. Have a good one. Bye.